You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 64. This week on the show, we're joined by Peter Andrews and Dane Webb of Lifetime Decoys. The guys stopped by the show to talk a little bit about decoy products and rigging tips and techniques. All right, welcome to the 64th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. I'm your host, Josh Palm. If you want to check us out, you can find us at hpoutdoors.com. Also, we've got all of our past episodes archived on iTunes. You can go there and subscribe, and you'll get every brand new episode pushed out to you automatically. You can also check us out across all of the different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, where else are we? Twitter, all the good stuff. Check us out online. Joining me this week, as he always does, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's happening?
Not too much, my main man. You know what? Every time I hear our intro, you can't see me because we're, remote recording, but I have a little, head nod going, to the beat, just kind of excited. Sometimes I get, like I'm almost smelling something bad, a little stinky lip, going on, just gets me, just kind of gets me pumped up. So, not too much. It's July. It's just these hot months starting that I don't really enjoy so much, but, living life, mowing my yard. I got a new mower, loving it.
Minivan Dan, Weatherman Dan, Lawn Care Dan.
Cleaning the minivan out, whenever the wife leaves garbage in there and keeping that pristine.
All right, let's not derail 30 seconds into the show. Joining us on the show this week is Peter Andrews and Dane Webb. These are the guys from Lifetime Decoys. And I know you've seen them if you watch the Grind Waterfowl TV or Heartland Waterfowl. You've seen their rigs all over the place. So we're excited to have them on the show today to talk to us a little bit about not only some of the products that they offer, but also, how can we as hunters best deploy the systems that they have come out with and the things that they're, innovating with and bringing to the market. So, Peter, Dane, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes and for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Guys, I whenever we bring someone on the show, we always do a little bit of research on the company and, we look at not only the products, but kind of, where have they come from and how their products evolved and all that kind of stuff. And, the first thing that kind of popped into my mind when Dan and I started talking about, discussing this stuff with you guys is I was like, these guys have come into a market that is incredibly challenging. I mean, being in the waterfowl industry alone is tough, but then you go into a market where, there's a lot of different options out there. I'm a big fan of Shark Tank, right? So I always think about, how can you make a better mousetrap? They talk about that on Shark Tank a lot, and that's kind of something that it seems like you guys have really got into. You've found a better way to do something that's been done, generally speaking, been done for a long time. People have been waiting their decoy rigs and kind of, trying to find better, efficient, cheaper, easier ways to do it. And now here you guys have got into a company that's, blowing up. We see all over TV and all that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about, your background, your company's background, and sort of how did this all come to be and how'd you guys get to where you're at?
Well, me and Dane have been friends since high school, and my family, my great-grandfather purchased some property in Texas, so I grew up hunting the great duck ranch, lots of rice fields and tons of ducks. So I kind of grew up duck hunting, and like we all encounter eventually, especially with decoy rigging, you run into problems like your decoy rig tangling or just having to replace them all the time. And that's kind of how we got our start. Was one day I was out in the field and I had 3 dozen brand new decoys, 3 dozen brand new decoy rigs. And as soon as I got out there, they were full of memory, and I took them off the carabiner and dropped them. And they all just immediately tangled up to the point where I couldn't even use them that morning. So I literally had a pile of 3 dozen ducks sitting there that I couldn't use. So it pretty much ruined my whole morning. And, you know, I went to Home Depot and tried to find a material that would work better than, you know, the standard weed whacker monofilament that carries a lot of memory and tends to tangle. And that's kind of how we got started. But like you were talking about in the beginning, kind of highly competitive industry and Shark Tank is, you know, the way to get into any industry is you have to have something that's different, which is key. It has to be different. So, you know, whatever market you want to enter, if you have the same product as somebody else, well, they're already in all the retail stores, so you're not going to gain any traction. So, luckily, what we discovered with our cable lines is that coated cable material actually works a lot better. And so that's kind of how we got into the market, was discovering that this coated cable material works better for a number of reasons. And then we just started marketing it, and people realized that it was, you know, it was a better mousetrap. So that's kind of how we got in, was kind of coming up with something that was different and a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, what Peter missed there is that we used the product for, I think it was 5 years before we even considered that this might be a business. The original rigs that we put on those decoys were still in use when we started the business. And everyone who hunted with us saw the rigs and they're like, this is incredible. And we heard from countless people, y'all need to start a business. You need to start a business. And so Peter took the initiative and got the material and started building these rigs. And at first we started selling to friends and family. But it got so big, and, you know, you're trying to grow, you're trying to make something huge out of it. And so we found a manufacturing facility, and, you know, we've taken it now from our garage to shipping to Bass Pro and Cabela's and Max Prairie Wings and Rogers, among others.
Yeah, Dan, I know you're going to jump in here, but I got to say, yep. I'm a fan of Shark Tank. I'm not just saying that because I use the analogy, but, you know, in that show they say, you know, if you do it for 3 years and you don't have numbers, you know, it's a hobby, right? You know, and I think that's what a lot of guys struggle with, particularly so many guys that just dream of, you know, doing what you guys are doing, working in an industry that is something that you're just inherently passionate about because you like to duck hunt in general, right? So, you know, you have these interactions with your friends, and, you know, a lot of people out there have probably had that interaction where, you know, you get your buddies and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, you know, that's neat, whatever. But to take it that next level and to be able to make that push in the scaling that you talk about, you know, you can't do that if you don't have a legitimately, you know, different in product that is going to bring some additional value to the market. And, you know, when we got our hands on your guys' product, you know, we've used them all. I mean, we've used, you know, the smaller decoy rigs, you know, some of the bigger names out there. I mean, we've literally, you know, through the show, we've experienced them all. And like literally, Dan sent me a text the day that we both got them in the mail. And, you know, as he often does, it was profanity laced, and it was just, you know, raving about how amazing they were. And we tell the people on this show this all the time. You know, we wouldn't have a company on here if we didn't think that the product was quality and that our listeners base needed to hear about it. So, you know, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the rigs themselves as we get into it. But, you know, I find it amazing because there's literally, I mean, if you spend any amount of time on Facebook, there's a billion people out there that have ideas about the next waterfowl product, and they want to start a business, and they want you to like their page and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think, well, I mean, I'm sure some people have an appreciation for it, but I can tell you for sure that Dan and I appreciate just how hard it is to do what it is that you guys have been able to do. So, you know, for that, you know, congratulations, and we applaud you guys. And, you know, I think it's cool when you see companies, you know, start from, you know, the garages and the Home Depots and things like that and turn it into something much larger. So very, very cool story. And, you know, I'm glad that we get a chance to hear it from you guys today.
Yeah, the necessity driving innovation is awesome, and especially in the hunting world. I think there's three things that I really think are game changers in the waterfowl industry. One was getting rid of cotton and going to a merino base layer for moisture wicking. The second one is finding Texas rigs that actually do not tangle, which we finally found, you guys created. And the third is a self-cleaning gun. So whoever has the idea to go and to make that would be great. I would greatly appreciate that one. But no, seriously, when we got these rigs in the mail and you ship them, you know, pretty much tied together, like intertwined with each other. And the first thing I thought was, oh boy, like I don't want to sit here right now thinking about duck hunting and have to untangle Texas rigs. And then so for the guys that don't know, they're like in a circle and just keep going inside of each other. And I pulled those out, went completely straight, pulled each one out, no tangles. I was like, wow. So then I had to go and put my decoys on them, carried them around the yard a little bit, acted like I was going to throw them out in some water, and same thing. So, I mean, they came right apart, and this is, you know, the number 2 on my list. So first I want to say thank you. And then, you know, you talked about it a little bit, but you know what, just talk about the line a little bit. You know, everyone has, like Josh said, you go online and you see everyone making their own. And I'm a guy that a lot of my hunts are before work. So, you know, if I have to do anything with the kids before I go, and a lot of the time I'm rushing out the door. And like you said, you know, you get out there and you have 3 dozen decoys sitting at your feet that you can't even use. I've been there, and it's discouraging. You just get so angry, especially you start seeing ducks flying, and you know, go ahead and brag it up a little bit. Like, talk about what is different about your rigs.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, material makes all the difference, right? It's like if you're making a bicycle, you know, forever they were made out of steel, and then somebody decided to make one out of aluminum, and everyone was like, "Well, this aluminum bike's way better because it's a third of the weight and it's strong." And you know, the coated steel cable it benefits. You know, it works well for decoy rigging for a number of reasons. Like you were talking about, number one is that it's steel cable, so it doesn't come with inherent line memory. So if you think about trying to tie a steel cable, you know, as a shoelace or something, you know, it just won't make a knot. So it inherently kind of wants to knot up. So that was one of the big deals is, okay, this cable wants to stay straight, which helps tremendously if you have 4 dozen decoy rigs that you drop in the water. And, you know, number two problem was you don't want your decoy rigs to break. You don't have to replace them every season or two. And so this, you know, the coated cable is going to last season after season. Like Dane was talking about, we were using our first original coated cable rigs for, you know, 5 years before we started the company. And so what we did for the second problem, you know, you don't want them to break season after season. So we just basically machine press the ferrules, so the crimps that hold the weight in place and they hold the loop in place. So the machine press, so they'll never come out. So it's made out of cable and it's machine pressed, so it won't break and steel last season after season. So it kind of knocks out 2 of the big problems, the tangling and the replacing.
And to kind of tie into that, you can't use the kind of ferrules and the machine press on any other material other than steel cable because it's inherently not strong enough to put a hydraulic press on that material. So that's a huge benefit that we didn't know when we started this process. We were using a hammer and hammering these things, but the hydraulic press just makes it bulletproof.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you know, Dan, I know for sure has lost decoys because of poor craftsmanship on rigs. I'm not kidding. I mean, that's honest to God. And that gets to my next question. And this I'm going to kind of nerd out a little bit now with my next couple questions about just some nuances things, because I think there are subtle differences that, I'm not trying to insult the intelligence of anybody here, but like the average duck hunter may not exactly realize what it is that is different about this, or what it is that, makes this better than something else. And in one particular area is, the term Texas rig is kind of thrown around generically a lot of times. And when I hear Texas rig, I think of the bass, plastic lure that I'm throwing most of the time. But
Right.
what's different for you guys is that in your system, the decoy actually slides on the line and the weight is fixed on the bottom, where I'm used to the decoy being fixed at one end, handle on the other, and the weight is what slides. Tell me why that is better. Why should people care about that?
I think that the aspect of a sliding decoy, the biggest thing there is that your loop sits at the keel. So you don't have to get your hands wet. You don't have to go to the bottom of the weight in the line to actually pick up your loop and put it on a carabiner. The other aspect is that if you get memory in your line, like you do with monofilament rigs, the weight will catch on that memory, and then you pitch a decoy out, and your decoy is floating off because your weight catches halfway down the line. So if you have a stationary weight, it's never going to happen that way. Even if you have a bend in the cable, if you catch it on something and put a crimp in it, the swivel is always going to go around that crimp in the line. So there's no way that these can malfunction.
Yeah, we had a guy who showed us a picture, and he had one of our coated cable rigs that got stuck in his boat propeller, and it didn't break. It was just quite mangled. But even with that rig, you could still use it because the decoy is still going to slide up and down that line. It's just not going to be quite straight anymore because it's hammered by a propeller. But theoretically, you could still use that. So if the line somehow became quite damaged, you can still use the Texas rig because that swivel will slide over it, versus if you have a mono or a different material and that line gets kinked, then, like Dan was saying, that weight will get stuck and your decoy will float off. So the Texas rig system is, like Dan was saying, for the loop, the line slides down and the loop sits next to the keel so you don't have to get your hands wet. But also, the line remains functional even if it gets damaged.
Yeah, and I think that was what Josh was referring to, me losing decoys before. I had some there at the Pine Tuning, the local lake here, and I threw some out. I had it wrapped around the keel and unwound it and tossed it out. I'm like, man, I don't think I'm moving back from my blind much, but that decoy looks like it's down. So, and that's exactly what happened. And I found, I don't know how many decoys I've found, and I'm sure the same thing happens, so I don't really know where I want to go with my next question, but can cables be too long is always the question. Well, one question, I was putting them together and put one in water and it was real shallow water and it kind of stuck out. Do you have any issues with that at all? And I know that, the line it's rubber coated, it's a brown rubber coating, so you're not going to have the shine like a clear, 400-pound monofilament. But do you ever have any issues with something like that?
I think one of the other benefits to cable is that it's considerably heavier than mono is. So we typically, where we hunt, we're anywhere from 24 inches to 5 or 6 feet, depending on, how much rain we've had or just where we're hunting in that particular area. But we use a 48-inch rig regardless. And generally that line doesn't coil up and come out of the water the way that monofilament does. It wants to sink. It wants to settle. And, the reason that we use brown is because typically when you're duck hunting, that time of year, all the vegetation is brown. It's dead. And it matches really well with everything at the bottom of a pond or a rice field or anything you're hunting in.
Right. And to follow up on what you were talking about in terms of the line shallow or can it be too long is, you know, a lot of guys are concerned with how deep the water is and how long they want their rigs to be. Well, part of the reason is because if you're using monofilament and you're hunting in a foot or 2 foot of water and you have a 4-foot mono line that has coils in it, then it'll show. It'll pop up and you'll see it next to the decoy. But what we tell people with Dakota cable is that you could hunt in a foot of water with a 6-foot rig and the line's going to sink. So the decoy will just float, 6 feet away from the anchor and it'll stay there. So you can hunt with any length of cable in any depth of water, as long as it's deep enough. As I tell people, if you're hunting in 6 feet of water, you want to have a 6-foot, at least a 6-foot rig. But if you're hunting in a foot of water, then you can still use your 6-foot rig because it's not going to show. It doesn't have the cables, it doesn't have the coils in it, and it'll sink. So kind of like a flat cable that'll just sink underwater. So you don't have to worry ever about the line showing, depending on the depth of the water.
Right. And I do want to go back again to the swivel idea and how awesome that is, because on older ones, and it's not just, getting your hands wet, but if you have that vegetation on your sinker and it has to go to the other end of your rig, so you're down there. Sometimes I don't have my decoy gloves on and, it's cold and you have to grab all the seaweed or whatever you have on it. I mean, that is a pain in the butt. So, and, you get the cold fingers after, 6 or 7 decoys, and it's just, it adds to the duck hunting experience. But, if you can avoid it, you want to avoid it. So, I mean, just to be able to go and pick up your decoy, the link is right there, and, put it on the carabiner, you're good to go. Like, there's nothing else to it. And just an awesome design. I'm pretty thrilled about it.
Well, what he's not telling you too is that he's typically, while he's doing this, he's battling like a crotch leak in his waders or something like that. So the efficiency that this design adds in is very beneficial for Dan.
The crotch leak, my dirty gun is getting jammed open.
It's so much
frozen.
going on.
It's just anything that I can avoid is just awesome in my mind. So kudos again on that.
Duck hunting's hard enough as it is, and when we go out, we want to spend as much time hunting and shooting as we can. And to be able to go out and take 4 dozen decoys and throw them out in under 5 minutes and also pick them up in under 5 minutes, it makes a huge difference when you're not wrapping keels, when you're not dealing with bags. It's just a complete game changer, and it's way more enjoyable to go out and use a anchor system that we have compared to some of the others out there.
Yeah, I'm looking through your marketing brochure right now, and this next question is going to be kind of several part. And this one's all about me because where I hunt, it's tidal water. So this is a legit question I got. All right. So I love gear I think as much as I love actually hunting. Like duck hunters like gear, right? I mean, but there's times when I'm just like, man, this seems complicated. Man, there's just a lot of variables going on, and I'm looking at your guys's, your rig layout here, and I'm seeing 30-inch, 48-inch, 48-inch 4-ounce, 48-inch 6-ounce, 72-inch 6-ounce, all these varieties. All right. So I'm a guy that's, getting into hunting, let's say. How the heck do I pick the right fit? So, my particular situation adds a little bit of a degree of difficulty because I hunt a lot of tidal areas. So when you talk the difference between 1 foot and 5 feet, that could be a morning for me, depending on, water levels in the wind direction and that kind of stuff. But also, any given morning, I may be hunting on a falling tide with wind blowing in that direction as well. So my little, plastic decoy has got a lot of tension on him the whole time. And I've seen, particularly with some of my honker floaters, they will move. So, as you talked about, sometimes, if you're carrying these, a steel cable is going to be a little bit heavier than, monofilament or maybe something like that. But the drawbacks, the benefits of that are warranted in my opinion. Having said that, when you're trying to balance weight, length, holding power, all of these different things that we got going on, how do you find the sweet spot? I mean, is there a way that I could say, all right, I'm hunting on average this depth of water, I'm hunting over these types of decoys. I need a minimum of this kind of weight. And do you make up for weight if I'm hunting in, 2 foot of water and I use a 6 foot leader versus a 4 foot, right? If it's 6 foot, can I get away with a little bit lighter? That gives me some more versatility in deeper water, things like that. Is there a way to kind of crack that code, or am I just overthinking this, or, should I like call the NSA or something? Like, how do I figure all this out?
I think it's a combination of the water depth and water movement. So if you're hunting in a river that could be 6 feet deep or more, then you obviously want to make sure that your line is long enough. And as your line gets longer, you're going to want to have a heavier weight on there. So, I mean, if you're hunting where the water could be from 2 feet to 10 feet, which a lot of guys are, last year we came out with the 10 foot 10 ounce, which I think is about as long as you'd like to go with a Texas rig. But with the cables, it works because the lines generally don't have coils. If you had a 10 foot monofilament cord, it would be a disaster. But if you have the cable, you can get away with having a 10 foot 10 ounce. So that 10 foot 10 ounce would work great in moving water, and it would also work in 2 feet of water without showing the cable. So, I mean, if you're hunting a deep river, that's when you want to go with a heavier, longer line. But if you're hunting, like I tell people, if they're hunting where you're walking in the water and not getting any deeper than their chest waders, then generally the 4 foot is going to be fine because you're going to be long enough. And we have a 4 foot 4 ounce. And if you're using a lot, if you're in a windy area, some guys are using a heavy decoy, then you're going to want to go with the 6 ounce weight. And then I guess, if you're hunting water that's really moving and you're concerned that the 10 ounce weight still might not hold, then that's when I would kind of recommend going into the gang rig area, which uses a giant, 3-pound anchors, and that's not going anywhere. So, it just depends on the water depth and the wind and the movement of the water. But I think you can't go wrong if you have a little bit longer and a little bit heavier. You're going to be fine. You just kind of don't want to be too short and too light.
But so just for hang on, Dan, one second.
I think
Dan.
Another big aspect.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I
you're
think
good.
Another big aspect is vegetation. You can get away with a lot less weight when you have something other than a solid bottom, because generally the weight is going to hold on that vegetation. We have 2 different styles of weights. One is a kind of a bank sinker teardrop shape. And the reason we use that is because if you have a lot of vegetation, the vegetation will slide off that teardrop a lot easier than it will a mushroom anchor, which we offer in the 6 ounce and 10 ounce. So if you don't have vegetation and you have a lot of wind, you're using goose floaters. Those mushroom anchors hold a lot better in just a sand bottom or a mud bottom. And I think that's one key aspect that Peter didn't mention is you have to know where you're hunting in the vegetation. But I think generally people think they need more weight than they actually do.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that bears a lot of truth because, I've got a lot of, in the past I've hunted over a lot of 48-inch 4 ounce that I would throw my, duck floaters on, and then there'd be times when I'd hook a full a foam filled honker decoy and it would hold it too. There are other days where it won't even have a prayer of holding it, but there are days where that will work depending on the conditions and all that kind of stuff. I think, and kind of to the crux of my question, I think a lot of people out of just simple fear would say, well, I better club up another length here just to make sure I can get everything I need. When in fact, like there are a lot of things that you could probably eliminate fairly quickly. Like Dan's talking, where if you're hunting lakes with natural vegetation and stuff, you got a lot more to hold on to than just a hard sand bottom. So, knowing that is important when you're ordering something like this, because you can, end up saving yourself some coin and actually, maybe get more of the rig that would be most effective for like 90% of your hunting situations. So I know Dan's probably going to jump in here on this, but that was really kind of where I was going with that, because I think if you don't know any better, you would just assume, well, the lightest one can't possibly be the best. So let me go up another weight or two. And then you may be just carrying around extra weight for no real good reason.
Well, the funny story is when we started the company, the first two rigs that we made were a 48-inch 3-ounce and a 72-inch 3-ounce. Because where I hunted, we had vegetation and, not a lot of moving water. And in my mind, like Ben was saying, you generally think you need more weight than you do. But these were, I felt like they were plenty. But, when you get to that 6-foot length, you generally want a little bit more than 3-ounce. But
when I was jumping in, I was going to ask exactly the question about the bank sinker versus the mushroom. And I think the bank is perfect for where we're at, different just little runoffs and just, swampy stuff that you pull out. I don't even know what you pull out of the bottom of some of those swamps, but, most of it, I don't know. I'm just a big fan. And then, here in Pennsylvania, and we currently are not allowed to use spinning wing decoys. So I'm looking at your jerk rig, and I'm in my garage right now is where I'm recording at. So I'm looking at my one that I use all the time, and the paracord just looks like junk right now. I mean, it definitely, that's what I have been pulling for a few years. And then I'm looking in your marketing catalog here and seeing that, it's a steel cable main line there too, which not only is that going to last longer, but also just the effectiveness of pulling it gets such a better reaction. And on top of that, most of the jerk rigs that you get have set locations for your decoys, and that's not the case with your guys. So maybe if you want to talk to your jerk rig a little bit.
Yeah, that was a really important innovation for us. We use a lot of different jerk rigs after having a lot of frustration with using spinning wing decoys down in Texas where we are. By the time the ducks get down to us, they have been shot at thousands of times in every state. We're the last ones to see the birds. And so they end up flaring from those spinning wing decoys more than anything. But you need motion to draw ducks. So we started using a jerk rig, and it was effective, but it was a pain. It was a pain to use. It was a pain to set out. It was a pain to pick up. So we started looking into how to make a connection that was easy to use and different than what everyone else has. So we got these mainline clips, which most people are familiar with from a gang rig perspective, and we put a short little drop with a swivel on one end, and so you connect your jerk rig decoys to that swivel and that clip, and you've got your separated jerk rig decoys there. So you can use a butts up or a skimmer decoy and have those specifically for your jerk rig. And the other great thing is most of your jerk rigs have, 4 connections there. Ours, you can add as many as you want. We typically run 2, one on each side of the blind, and we've got 24 decoys that are moving. It's incredibly effective, and I think a lot of people will start using a jerk rig in the next few years as the ducks continue to get used to the spinning wing decoys.
Well, I was just going to add on to what Dane was saying, was the drop were probably the biggest evolution in the jerk rig, in our jerk rig, because our original design actually had the clips sectioned off every 6 feet. And when we took it out there and used it, well, you have to grab a decoy that doesn't have a line on it, and then you have to hook it up to the line, each one. And I got through about 2 of them, and I was like, this is the biggest pain in the butt I've ever experienced, just because they've taken me 30 minutes to set up my jerk rig, because I had to take these decoys on and off of the actual line. And so adding that little drop, I mean, you toss your anchor, and then as you're walking back to your line, you just hook on your jerk rig decoys wherever you want. It takes 5 seconds. You can set up your jerk rig in 3 minutes, which is just a huge game changer with those drops.
Yeah, and that's I can attest to that because, you know, and I actually have a 6-slot decoy bag that I have my jerk rig set up in, but just the fact that all that string has to be laying out, and then I have to carry that bag out and try and not get tangled up in it, and then just having those at that location is not ideal all the time. So that's a huge advantage for your rig. And another thing, like I was talking about, a lot of people, I know some people use, the wax cord. A ton of people use paracord, and it just starts to stretch after a while. So I could be sitting there and, moving my jerk rig a little bit, and then, I have to wind it up a little bit because the paracord is stretching. And assuming that the steel cable on that is not going to stretch and just be so much more reactive, I think that is going to be with me this fall. So
we went through a lot of iterations of our jerk rig to finally get it right. And one of the things we really focused on was a super high quality bungee cord, marine grade. It's long. It's 6 feet long. So you're going to get a huge pull out of it. And, all the other ones just they're designed to fail at some point. So you have to replace it. That's the biggest thing with our company is everything we build is designed to last a lifetime. And that's how we got the name. One of the other aspects of the jerk rig that a lot of people have told me about, and I never thought about it this way, but having the drops actually will allow the jerk rig mainline to drop a little lower in the water column. And what that helps with is your dog swimming through. A lot of people won't use a jerk rig because they don't want their dog to get hung up in it. My lab, Peter's retriever, will go straight through that jerk rig, and you won't even know it's there. It really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and it also probably allows you to get even that much more, motion in the water and stuff because you're pulling down from farther in that water column, so you're stirring things up a little bit more. To even if you're using it in shallower water, you may actually get a little drag on the bottom, which is also kind of cool if you're in clear water and that kind of thing. But I'm going to transition a little bit here because I'm looking at your gang rig, and I don't want to use any names here or anything like that. I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. But there's one person on this show that likes to hunt diver ducks a lot. And then there's another person on this show, Dan, who doesn't. And, even though he lives on a lake that, has divers all over it, for some reason, this individual doesn't like to hunt them, for whatever reason. But, I'm looking at your gang rig here, and, everything in conventional wisdom goes against what this product looks like. It's thin line. It's wound tight as can be on this handle. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, this looks like a 4 a.m. bird's nest to me. To have a product like that, let's just say it looks like you guys have a ton of confidence in the product because, obviously, as one can imagine, I'm hunting over right now 1/4 inch rope. People tar these things. They go out of their way to create that stiffness, that I'm obviously assuming that you guys get from the steel cable. I don't have a real good point with what I'm saying right here, but all I know is, it just goes against conventional thought, I guess is kind of where I'm going with this and how you guys have approached this particular setup. I'm to the point where I don't even take my decoys off the line. I'm that terrified of a tangle. So I just place them in the bags and don't touch it, don't breathe on it. Just hope the next time you hunt that it's not a disaster in there. So winding it up on a handle like that just looks terrifying to me. And like I said, that just flies in the face of what, is ingrained in hunters that have had problems with this particular issue forever.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that. When we originally designed our jerk rig and our gang rig, we had one solid line. And when we got them in from our manufacturer, we had them on these spools, and Peter and I pulled them out of the box. We were so excited, and we started unwinding, and they just exploded off the spool. It was a disaster. Exactly what you're talking about. And we're like, well, this is a terrible idea. So we started messing with it, and we thought, why don't we put a swivel every 6 feet and allow the line to rotate on itself? And that way you don't build that memory that wants to just explode out of the spool. And so we tried that, and it worked exactly as we planned. And that's what allows both our jerk rig and our gang rig to be functional, is that swivel. The line rotates on itself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we had, if you tried to wind up 100 foot of coated cable that didn't have swivels, then you're going to get about 10 to 15 feet, and the whole line in front of you is going to start to wrap up on itself, and it's going to be a disaster. So almost out of sheer necessity, we had to put these swivels every 6 feet. And then once we did, we realized that, hey, this is actually incredible, because now we have the combination of the steel cable, and it turns over on itself. So when you're wrapping it up, it's just going to continue to turn on itself, and it'll never coil until it wraps up simply easily onto that handle. And yeah, like you were talking about, if you have to leave your decoys on the main line because you're worried about it not tangling, then that's just a huge mess in a bag. I mean, I don't even know how you do that, but that's the benefit of the drops and the swivel. So when you're unwinding it, it's kind of untangling itself, and then you just drop on just the same as you do with the jerk rig. Those mainline drops, you just connect them right onto the main line wherever you want. So you don't have to worry about anything tangling up. So it really works well.
We went from this is a disaster to this is genius. And it was, I mean, that's the way a lot of this stuff works. It's trial and error, and we've all done it. I mean, we've all had those ideas that it makes things a lot easier. But I was also going to mention that the other benefit to the swivels every 6 feet is that it's a place that your gang rig clip, your mainline clip, can't go beyond. So if your clip wants to slide down the line, which it will do on any gang rig, it's going to stop in that 6 foot section and not go past the swivel, which is a big benefit.
Yeah, Lord knows I've been in some windy conditions where I've had decoy lines blowing, all over the place, and stuff sliding all over. And how I to your comment about how I do my rigs now, one, you use a really thick rope, and two, you never touch the dropper line ever. Like if you touch that thing, I mean, you might as well pack it in that morning, because you're not going to hunt. If you touch the dropper line, you pull it out by the main line and just pray that it works out. But yeah, I like swivels. That sounds like a fantastic idea.
Well, hey, I mean, I have a pretty hefty diver decoy rig. I have 6 bluebills, and all on Texas rigs, so
it's insulting.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I could imagine your faces when you unwound that first one, just straight jack in the box. You're probably like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm sure the
disaster.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to
throw it in the trash.
Just another quick question on the jerk rigs. Do you guys see any higher sales in states that don't allow spinning wing decoys? I'm kind of asking that because Pennsylvania right now has preliminarily approved spinning wing decoys for this year, but I was just wondering, if you do see any sales higher in states that don't allow.
Yeah, I think Arkansas this past year, and it may be due to Max Prairie Wings really pushing the product, but Arkansas was a place that we saw a lot of sales. You need that motion in the water, and if you can't use electronic decoys, the jerk rig is the answer. So, yes, we have.
Yeah, particularly in timber. Timber, you're in there trying to just get any kind of motion you can. So your jerk rig, kick in the water, everything you can do. So I'm sure Arkansas is probably up there.
The jerk rig is, it's a straight game changer. And even for you guys that are allowed to use the spinning wing decoys, like, and you probably pack them in the bag quite a bit, but don't use them. I mean, if you aren't using them right now, you should definitely look into it, because it definitely upped our productivity here in Pennsylvania when we started using them.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how to use a jerk rig, when to actually make the decoys move. And what we tell people is, when the birds are making their turn, when they can see the spread, but they're not right in there, that's the best time to create the motion. You don't want to do it when they're cupped in. You don't want to do it when they're right on top of you, because it looks relatively unnatural for, 12 of your decoys in a spread to all move at the same time. But if you're doing it when they're making a turn and they're a little further out and they're not looking like they want to commit, and you're able to stir that water up and create ripples, it looks a lot more natural.
Right. I mean, it's definitely jerk rigs are a total game changer, especially if you're hunting on a calm morning where there's no wind and that water is just perfectly flat. You could have pintail circling you, they circle once, they circle twice, they circle for the third time, and then they're gone. If you don't have it, you could have spinning wings going, but if you have spinning wings going and the water's there's no ripples in the water, then you're not going to get those ducks to come in. But if you have just a jerk rig and they're circling, it's almost magic how when you pull on that jerk rig and you get that spread moving, those birds will commit. And it is highly noticeable that we use them almost every time we go out there.
Yeah, and the thing too, compared to the other rigs and the rig that I use, having it clipped so close to the line, if you move it just a little bit to try and get that ripple and then let it go, that decoy is going to move forward a little bit, and then when it moves back, it doesn't always turn, and it pushes it backwards a little bit. So it looks like your ducks are swimming.
Right.
Where on this drop rig like you guys have, it's going to look like it's feeding. It's going to move a little bit, forward and then turn. It's not going to push it straight back. And I think that's a big advantage as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have a big, long bungee on there. Our bungee is 5 feet long, so you can pull it, you pull it 3 feet back, 3 or 4 feet back, and then let it go. So you can basically have your duck swimming towards you, and then you let it go, and then they're swimming back in the other direction. So our first models of our jerk rig didn't have a long enough bungee, so we couldn't get them to swim like we wanted them. So made the bungee 5 feet long, and that way you can pull them a lot. You can almost pull them as far as you can push your hand back. So you can really make them swim around and look nice.
I think that was a really great point that I think Dane made about, when to use the rig, because, certainly on this show, we're as guilty of it as anybody, where we'll say, if you're going to give me motion or give me my call, I'll leave the call in the bag and I'll use motion. But a lot of guys associate, all motion as good motion and don't realize that you can in fact overdo it, and having some tact when you use that jerk rig is important. And, Dan and I hunt the Atlantic Flyway. I can't speak for Dan. I see maybe, like 4 or 5 local mallards a year, and the rest of the things I'm shooting at pretty much are, canned geese. And we use the flag a lot. And, it's the same kind of principle. If you're a goose hunter out there and you want to, in your duck hunting, you're using them on the corners, you're not going to beat your flag to death when the, birds are backpedaling over the spread. So having that little bit of tact, I think some guys get discouraged maybe if they don't see the jerk rig work. Well, I'm out here pulling it and these birds are just, circling and going on. What the heck's the deal? Is, they think that, people are lying to them or whatever. And that only happens in the, the Mississippi Flyway and all that kind of stuff. But, it's like what you're saying. Sometimes less is more, but none is none. If you've got nothing, you have very little opportunity to pull those ducks. But if you've got something that you can use at those key points, as you said, it can be magic.
Right, and it doesn't take much. You just, as far as when to pull it, it's almost like when the ducks are flying right over you. You don't look up at them, and you don't move, and you don't pull on your jerk rig. And then when they get past you and they're making their turn again, you start yanking on it and pull and make the water move around, and then they look again, spread looks great to them, so they'll come in. So yeah, it's kind of little bit of timing, but it, you start to figure out pretty quick, when to pull on that jerk rig, and it works great.
Oh, we're sitting here in July and talking about this, and I'm just getting really, really excited right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting the blood flowing a little bit just looking through this catalog and thinking about getting back out there. So.
Dan, this is a family show. Let's not talk about blood flow, dude.
Oh, blood flowing. Blood is flowing.
Well, we've kept these guys for almost an hour, so if you got one more question, go ahead and send it.
I think I'm pretty good. I mean, I have the rig sitting in front of me, and I put it through the torture test, trying to kink it and get the swivel over it, and trying to pull the line out of the crimps here. And I mean, it's just I don't know. On top of it being indestructible, having it not tangle up is just number 2 on my list. I got the merino wool. Got the Texas rigs that don't tangle, looking for that self-cleaning gun, and I think I'll be set. So, kudos to you guys again on a great product and, being innovators in a really tough field. And, I hope to talk to you guys again and wish you a really good season coming up.
Well, thank y'all for having us. If you ever want to come down to Texas and hunt some little brown ducks, you're welcome to anytime.
I always want to come to Texas and hunt brown ducks. I'll just say that right now. Hey, before we let you guys go, though, as I mentioned earlier, people can see your product in action on the Grind Waterfowl TV, Heartland Waterfowl. New seasons are out now. They got tons of stuff on YouTube. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff, social media, website, all that good stuff.
We have a website, lifetimedecoys.com. You can find everything on there. A lot of our products are on Amazon as well. We've got tons of great reviews on there. Almost every one of our products has a unanimous 5-star rating. We're in a lot of the big retail stores, Bass Pro, Cabela's, online. Max Prairie Wings has been a great advocate for us. Rogers Sporting Goods, Shields. Pretty much any sporting goods store that you go into has our gear. And beyond that, if you need something custom, if you want a heavy short rig, if you want a long light rig, just send us an email. We're willing to make anything for you. And we've done a lot of that over the years.
We're also on, if you just search Lifetime Decoys on Facebook or Instagram, and we're active on both of those platforms as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you guys are both on those social media sites, and this is one thing I'll say. This is what I love about the outdoor industry, and particularly companies like you guys. You just rattled off every big retailer in the industry that you guys have your gear at. But I'm looking at your marketing brochure right now, and maybe this is something that, you guys are growing to the size where you don't want this to be knowledge, but I'm going to blow your spot here. I'm looking on the back, and it says Lifetime Decoys, and the 2 phone numbers that I have for contact are the 2 that go ring right to you guys. That number, when I call, we set up with your guy, Adam, this interview, and he gave me 2 phone numbers, and those are the 2 numbers that I see on the back of your marketing material. So, you talk about being able to get somebody on the horn if you have a question or a concern or something like that. Those numbers take you right to the top of the company. So I think that's pretty cool. But again, we appreciate you guys making some time for us here today. And, I know you guys are busy in the show season, so I know it's tough to carve out some time. So we do appreciate it. We look forward to, using your rigs this fall, and wish you guys nothing but the best. And hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Well, thanks a lot for having us. We love your show, and it's an honor to be on it. And hopefully we can be on again next year or the year after.
Absolutely. You guys launch a new product, you call us.
I was going to say, I did have one more comment. Well, 2 more comments. One with the customs, you guys have green line. Is that right? That you can order?
Yeah, that's how we started with green lines, because where we hunt, it's a lot of rice fields, and that rice stays green for about half the season. So we use the green because it matched our vegetation, and kind of went into production with that same green line. And we had some people who made comments about ducks flaring because of it. Rather than argue about it, we just made brown lines, and we offer both now.
So green lines, and then the last thing I was going to mention, I was just trying to do all the research I could on Lifetime Decoys, and I think it's been a few years, but you guys were on the duck hunting chat or another forum like that, and out there asking the guys in the field. I know you guys are hunters as well, but asking them, what would you guys change? What do you want? And you're on there, responding to everyone, and I just thought that was really cool. Not just getting a big head and doing what you wanted, but you're getting feedback from the guys that are out there and really listening and taking that to heart. So I thought that was super cool.
Being in this industry, getting into this industry, you meet a lot of people who you would assume are, untouchable or, would not be welcoming. And they're just regular guys. We're just regular guys who are out there trying to make a living. And, we don't know everything about duck hunting. And there are a lot of people out there who know more than we do. And we're always willing to listen, and we want to give people what they want. I mean, that's the whole goal of capitalism. You're trying to give people what they want and make a living that way. So it's important to listen to what people want.
Couldn't agree more.
I think
there's
that
probably
attitude has got you guys to where you're at.
Well, I was going to say, I live 30 miles outside of Washington, D.C. There's a few people in my neighborhood that could probably have that same could benefit from that same sort of mentality, but we try not to get too political on the show, keep it. But anyway, guys, thanks again. Appreciate you giving us almost an hour here, your time. And we would encourage everybody out there listening to the show to check them out. If you're, thinking that when, your decoy rig system that you're using now is just not quite doing it for you, definitely give them a look. And again, thanks guys. And best of luck to you this season.
Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, Dan, again, got to thank the guys from Lifetime Decoys for stopping by. But, that's the first interview that we've had in a while where I really feel like we covered a product that could have some pretty profound impact on our listenership. And what I mean by that is, we all function on, run our families, our day-to-day lives on a budget, right? And we've only got so much money that we can allocate towards our hobbies, waterfowl hunting, bass fishing, deer hunting, whatever it is that you're into. You've only got a finite, amount of money that you can use towards that stuff. And, this is the type of product, and this is just my humble opinion, that is noticeably different than its competitors for the variety of reasons that we talked about throughout the interview. So I truly believe that this is one product that I could wholeheartedly recommend, our listeners to purchase. And I say that with 100% confidence that they would be unequivocally happy with what they're getting in return. They're not paying me to say that. They're not, whatever. That's my honest to God opinion. Truly believe that. So I feel really good about being able to get this product out to our listeners, to have them check it out for themselves. And, it's one of those things I just feel pretty good about.
And there's so many details that get overlooked and people just trying to push product out. But some of these things are really just super innovative game changers, like even down to the machine press parts like that. I don't know how many rigs I have that are hand tied that go on a carabiner that get crimped down, and just, if those little things annoy you like they annoy me, or, rushing out to duck hunt before work and you can't get all your decoys out because they're tangled up and you just don't want to deal with it, or, they're freezing and it's just something you don't want to deal with, or decoys floating away because there's memory in the line. Like, I think, we've always been honest about our reviews, and this is no different. Like, it's just a product worth talking about. So I thought it was, awesome of those guys to come on and talk about it. And, just the good old American story of starting to, going to Home Depot and seeing how you can make something better. Like, that is awesome. So, kudos to those guys. And I really enjoyed talking to them.
You know what? And there's one more thing I'm going to add about this whole kind of deal. If you care about waterfowl hunting, to the level that, you know, we do and a lot of our listeners do and a lot of people across the country do. If you care about your waterfowl hunting, you know what it means when I say details matter. You might hunt one day, 1 week, one Saturday a month. You may hunt 55 days out of the duck season, right? No matter how often you get out there, the details matter. Your concealment matters. The performance of your gun, it matters. The way that your, you know, decoy spread is set, it matters. If you don't think decoy rigs matter, then you're not Dan and have had decoys float off in your spread, you know, and lose those decoys forever, right? So those little things, like, they make a difference and they matter. And, you know, I think that's something that a lot of guys need to remember because, you know, we've talked about a lot of different products that we like on this show. And we do that because the things that they bring to the table, in our opinion, set them above the rest. And whether you hunt 55 days or 1 day, I would think that your goal is to have the best possible hunt every single time that you get out there. And, you know, if that is your goal and you truly want to achieve that, then you better pay attention to details. And this is one of those details for me that matters. So not going to beat that dead horse any longer, but I hope everybody enjoyed that as much as we did. So,
yeah, I think it's impressive to say that you're 100% behind something after the your lanyard speech that we had a couple episodes ago.
I mean, I don't appreciate what you're insinuating, but I got my lanyard situation squared away, so yeah, I'm all set. But anyway.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So anything else you want to throw in here before we wrap up this show?
Yeah. I have one question for you.
Oh boy.
McGregor or Mayweather?
You're so into this.
I am.
I honestly,
I'm into the hype, man.
I honestly don't care, like, at all. I just don't. I mean, you know, like you said, they're both great fighters. I think McGregor's going to get beat badly, but I think, you know,
that's all I was asking.
I think McGregor's going to get beat badly. I mean, the only chance that he has is if he catches him with a haymaker and knocks him out. But
I don't think you can touch his face. I don't think you can hit him in the head.
Probably not. Probably not. And I can tell you that I will be firmly tucked into my bed, sawing logs before they even touch gloves. So you'll have to tell me about it the next day. So, you know, as a baseball guy, neither one of them can hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. That's the kind of stuff I care about.
There you go.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us for episode 64 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. Check us out on iTunes. Check us out on hpoutdoors.com and across all of our social media platforms. If you got any questions, concerns, join us in the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast listeners group on Facebook. We're in there chatting it up all the time, and we'd be more than happy to see you guys in there. So hopefully you enjoyed our discussion today on decoy rigs and decoy rigging techniques. You know, we're turning the corner on the summer. The season's almost here, so hang in there. So until next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.